As consumers, we are bombarded by it at every turn, like the Incredible Hulk being bombarded by gamma rays. But what makes some media endure, while others are banished to the forgotten black hole of obscurity, never to be heard from again? Who or what decides this? Hetero life mates Steve and Yahel want to know, and they want to know now. This is Obscurity Now. And what's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Obscurity Now, the show that takes a look at weird and obscure pieces of media, and then we decide if they should be remembered for all of time or tossed into the black hole of obscurity. My name is Steve, and I'm one of the hosts, and with me is a man who always gets the game over screen for actual reality. It's
Yahel, just living here in my virtual hellhole known as Tampa, Florida. Please, I wish somebody with a 486 DX2 computer would, call me, then put the phone receiver on a different hook and suck me out of here and into the world of, 50 polygons per second VR of 1995. How are you doing, Steve? That's me. That's how I'm doing.
Guess I'm doing a little bit better than you. I don't know. Now that I've been away from Tampa for so long, I'm actually a little...
You were just here a few months ago.
No, I mean, not living there, at least.
It is different.
Almost nostalgic for it, but not enough to have you suck me in there with the power of a rotary phone or a landline or whatever it is they use in the show that we are going to review today, known as VR.5.
You should come to Florida, man. The Omicron's nice and warm this time of year.
It's down there partying, right? In Panama City?
Yeah. It's got a float at the Pride Parade this year.
Whoa, Omicron is gay? Oh, you heard it here first, on Obscurity Now.
Just an ally. Omicron's just an ally.
Oh, well, he does have a cool name. I'll give him that.
Yeah.
Did you know there's like I think he's like a funk singer named Omaron. Yeah, that's his name. And there's like, have you heard of that guy?
No.
Oh, you're not into modern funk?
I watched a show from 1995 today about virtual reality. No, Steve, I don't know about a current artist.
All right, well, before we get into it, and I completely forget to mention this on every episode, we're here every Sunday at 3 p.m. and 6 p.m. talking about weird and obscure stuff. And as I mentioned before, we're talking about VR.5 today, a TV show that came on Fox, which is about virtual reality. And we think it's really
allegedly
it's really just about 90's trends sort of rolled into 60 minutes to kind of like follow the coattails of X-Files, but we'll get into that later.
Sure.
And but as I mentioned in the previous episode where we wrapped up 2021, you don't ever have to worry about that year again. It's over and done with.
Yeah.
I got a Oculus Quest, and that kind of, got me thinking about all the old VR nostalgia that went on during the 90's. And then that led to VR.5 here. So basically, January is the month of virtual reality here on Obscurity Now. So we've got a lot of other great to mediocre VR content coming up in the future. So make sure you stick around.
Wow, what a sell, Steve.
Oh, it's good. It's all good, baby.
Yeah. Hey, if somebody was able to convince Fox to put this show on the air, because it's so, I know you're going to get into the description, but this show, I don't know, like, it was not what I expected, is what I'll say.
I think it had a premise. Well, obviously it had a premise. I think it had a decent premise, but poor execution. But anyway, let's talk about those people in the feature presentation section. Let's do it.
Welcome to your feature presentation.
Can you believe that that's Adam Baldwin?
Yeah, weird, right?
He looks like Adrian Paul and Renegade like had a baby or something, or a third brother. Just with
Wait,
that.
what do you? I think you're confusing who Adam Baldwin is. He's not the long-haired guy.
Oh, he's not? Who is Adam Baldwin?
No. The Adam Baldwin is the love interest, construct fellow electrical worker.
Oh, well, all right. So who's
The guy that turns out to be a murderer.
who's the spoiler alert, bro? I mean, come on.
So, I mean, you're thinking of Michael Easton. He plays Duncan, the
Duncan
I don't know,
MacLeod.
he's-
You mean Duncan
the
MacLeod?
guy, right? Who occasionally has like a surfer accent.
Right. He's basically, I dubbed him in my notes like not Keanu Reeves or not Adrian Paul. But yeah, we'll get to him.
Yeah, we'll get to him.
So, all right. What are your memories, if any, of VR.5, a show from 1995?
I gotta tell you, Steve, because I suggested we cover this, which would imply I have a familiarity with it of some sort. I thought I had a familiarity with it as well too, and I guess I just remembered the name VR5, but I was really thinking of VR Troopers.
Oh, a
And
show which we're going to cover next week.
Right. So I go to watch the show, and I'm like, 45 minutes. I'm like, I thought VR Troopers was like half an hour, so without commercials, like 22 minutes. I'm like, oh well, maybe the first episode was just extra long or whatever.
Right,
Then I
two-parter.
start watching, I'm like, wow, these production values are really high. There's like helicopter shots. There's like cars being like destroyed and shit. I'm like, and then finally it literally took me like 2 or 3 minutes into it before I was like, you know what? This is a completely different show. Once I saw Adam Baldwin, actually, I think is when the light went off. Like, Adam Baldwin was not in VR Troopers.
Yeah, wow. Well, at least you figured it out. But hey, I didn't even know who Adam Baldwin really was. So I guess we both deserve to be fired from this episode.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, okay. I remember actually watching this show. I was a huge X-Files fan back in the 90s. Were you into the X-Files back then?
Oh, yeah, of course.
So yeah, I'm kind of surprised that this didn't catch your eye, because it was basically a mid-season replacement that was basically made to ride the coattails of the X-Files phenomenon that was going on, according to the creator slash producer Janine Renshaw, who also created Grey's Anatomy, or not created, produced Grey's Anatomy, Charmed, and Frequency. And that was like her quote to TV Guide or something, that it was going to, quote, capture the same creepy feeling of the X-Files.
I mean, I did not get from the commercial that I found for the show, because I'm sure I saw the TV promos for it. I did not get, this will be like X-Files or like have a similar vibe at all from the.
I wish I would have watched that commercial. I mean, I remember watching it either after or before X-Files, and just, I mean, of course, as a 13 or 12-year-old in the 90s, I was impressed that they had VR in there. And then also,
did they have VR in there?
They had VR in VR5, believe it or not.
You mean like in the title?
Yeah. Of course. I mean, that's just gonna put butts in the seats right there.
Yeah.
But and then I was like, yeah, this is pretty good. But I mean, it didn't really last very long for me to even get invested. In fact, okay, so there's a little weirdness going on here with the run of the season, according to IMDb. Okay, so this show basically, premiered in 1995, 13 episodes. 10 of the episodes were aired during its first run on Fox in 1995, and then it says it went to 1997. But if you look for the premiere dates of the episodes, none of them premiered, like all 10 premiered in 1995, and then 2 of them premiered in 97 somehow. And I actually kind of vaguely remember VR coming back very briefly on Fox and then just going away again. So maybe that's what they're talking about.
I can tell you that the full airing of all 13 episodes happened on the Sci-Fi channel.
Okay.
And that's when they aired the other three.
Gotcha. All right. Well, thanks for clearing that up. So yeah, the pilot premiered March 10th, 1995. And we got like two synopses here, one for the series and the pilot. Here's the series first. Young woman Sydney works in a telephone company, and she is sure that her father, Dr. Bloom, and sister died after an accident. Sydney's hobby is to play with virtual reality. She has found an ability in herself to enter into the human mind by using VR, Virtual Reality 5. Sydney is no ordinary person, and an influential, mysterious organization tries to use her. All right, and here's the synopsis for the pilot episode, which is what we'll be reviewing today. A tech wizard with a tragic past discovers that she can use her top-of-the-line photo-realistic VR tech to bring people into her VR world via phone and see or alter their subconsciousness. She uses this on her date to see if he is a creep. Which, I mean, that just sounds so...
Spoiler alert, he was a creep,
Yeah.
I guess.
I mean...
He's a murderer, so...
It just seemed, like, reading that just seems so cheap. It's like you have... I mean, I get it, it's supposed to be like a test to, like, figure out your powers and abilities, but, you know, you have this ability to essentially control people, and, like, that's what you go with. But, anyway, we'll get into the... further into the episode in a moment. The pilot was directed by Michael Cattleman, who also directed Quantum Leap, a much better show, X-Files, and most recently Netflix's Cowboy Bebop, which everyone seems to hate. And this was written by Tanya St. John, and their most recent project is actually called Project Blue Book from 2019. She wrote Lois and Clark and a 21 Jump Street episode. And then I guess that was the last of her. And this was produced by Samoa Set Productions.
Samoa Joe.
Yeah, his company. And basically, aside from this, they didn't really have much except for like a few TV movies. And I will leave the cast to you, my good friend.
Yeah, so the cast, not huge. We've got Laurie Singer in the lead. Laurie Singer, really, I knew the name and I thought she had done more stuff. And I mean, it looks like her last thing she did was a movie in 2017. But yeah, she was like in a bunch of like late 80s movies and 90s movies, but like not a lot of big parts per se.
I don't recognize her at all, to be honest.
I really think she's mostly known from Fame initially, that show.
Oh, okay.
She was on there on a lot of episodes of that. So, but moving on, we got Michael Easton, who plays Duncan, as we previously discussed. He's actually had a very good career. He's been on General Hospital for the last 10 years.
Wow.
And before that, he was on One Life to Live for a bunch of years, and he's just got a bunch of stuff done. He was in Mutant X.
Oh, I remember that.
Maybe we should cover that.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, so I think he's also pretty well known from Ally McBeal. We also have Will Patton, who another guy that's been in a bunch of stuff, kind of as a supporting actor, never the lead. But he was in Armageddon, is where like I initially recognized him from. But he was in The Postman, The Mothman Chronicles, like a bunch of shit. Then we've got Adam Baldwin. I think most people know him from Firefly. Or most people that will listen to our show. We got Penn Jillette. I think everybody knows
who
Penn Jillette is. Comedian / magician.
Right.
Extraordinaire. David McCullum, who he played Dr. Bloom. Maybe he's in like later episodes, but he doesn't have a big part here. He's still active despite being a very old man. He's been in NCIS since 2003. Steve, 18 years he's been on NCIS.
Well, I can't believe that show's even run for that long, but good for it and him. I guess we should be as Americans.
Yeah, there's some other people, but the only other two people I want to discuss is Louise Fletcher, who plays Nora Bloom. I know her as Kai Wynn from Star Trek Deep Space Nine, and I could not fucking believe she was in this. But then who did I see pop up? Robert Picardo.
The dude from Voyager.
Yes, the doctor from Voyager.
Oh, whoops.
He's got about 5 lines.
Nice. Here it is.
Oh no! We've just entered another Star Trek connection.
Yeah, I recognized him. I'm like, there's our Star Trek connection right there.
Yeah. Louise Fletcher was great in Deep Space Nine. Great villain. This is the first role I've ever seen her not play like a crazy evil person. So I assume she turns into a crazy evil person. Probably not, but
Right.
Steve, before we get into the show, just to kind of give everybody an idea of the pop culture zeitgeist of the time, I did pull up a few facts about just what was going on in March of 1995, which is when the show debuted. Do you remember the #1 song in March of 1995?
Oh, I bet it was something terrible. Something probably from Mariah Carey, I bet.
Ooh, not necessarily too far off. It was "Take a Bow" by Madonna.
There you go.
Any guesses as to the #1 film?
95. Well, something Michael Bay, I'm guessing.
Nope, but it's somewhat topical. Outbreak.
Oh,
#1
nice,
film.
nice. Yeah.
Also, a couple other things. They're both kind of related. So this aired, the pilot episode of VR.5 aired on March 20th. And I don't know if this is related to it. Maybe this was the inspiration to just get back out there. But on March 18th, 2 days before, Michael Jordan announced that he was ending his 17-month NBA retirement. And March 19th, as if to get one up on VR5, Michael Jordan rejoined the Chicago Bulls and beat the Pacers.
So are you saying that because of Michael Jordan rejoining the NBA, that's why, spoiler alert, VR5 got canceled? That's why they didn't get another season?
I'm saying that Laurie Singer VR5'd into Michael Jordan's brain a few days before and like convinced him to come back.
Whoa. I mean, you can't rule it out. You really can't.
The season finale of VR5, the series finale.
Well, one guy you left out of the cast, just not to go too far back, but you left out, I don't know how many Buffy the Vampire Slayer fans listen/watch us, but Anthony Stewart Head, who was he played Giles. Did you ever watch Buffy back in the day?
Not really. I don't see him. Is he not in the first episode?
No. He's in some other ones.
Okay. Yeah, I only looked at the cast from the pilot.
Right. Well, little known fact, he actually used to be known as Anthony Roadhead back in the day. He changed his name.
Okay. Is that some kind of relation to Road Dogg?
Just a bad joke.
He could have tag teamed with the New Age Outlaws and.
All right, that joke flopped harder than a whale in the desert. All right, moving on. All right,
so harder than VR5.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so is the zeitgeist set?
Oh yeah. Just had a few facts to get people in the March 1995 mindset.
Madonna. Yeah, that's like one thing I hated about the 90s is the pop music. Anyway.
Oh, as I'm sure you're loving it now.
Yeah, it's so much better. All right, so let's dive into this episode, which felt a lot longer than it actually was. All right, so we got our cold open here. It takes place in the past, which we are told. It takes place in Pasadena, California in 1978. A man brings a box home to his wife and twin daughters and their neighborhood friend who looks suspiciously like Jonathan Taylor Thomas. And then we discover it's got an old school computer in it. And I liked when he was like explaining the computer to the wife, and it's like the amount of like RAM and everything that was in it. I'm sure like
he's like it's got 16K of memory.
Yeah, this thing's
doesn't he say something like I could almost fit a whole book in it.
Right, yeah, something like this. Like, this thing's going to change our life, baby. Yeah, we're going to be riding high. And for some reason, he's British, yet the daughters and the wife aren't. I don't understand that, but maybe it's explained later in the series.
Well, the daughters just aren't as classy as him.
I suppose that's it. So, yeah, Dad, he also explains that I like it when he, in order to appeal to his daughters, he's like, we can also use it for games. And they're like, ooh, games. And he's like, is this better than Pong? And I was like, bitch, nothing's better than Pong. Now go to your room. Now, that may not have happened, but yeah, anyway. So daughter goes outside to retrieve a TV, because I guess they have to hook this computer up to a regular TV. And then
which was a thing with a lot of computers back then.
Sure,
your
sure.
Shandies and your Atari computers.
Right, and as she's out there, she runs into a dude in a suit. It's revealed that that twin that went out there is our protagonist, Sydney. Let's see. He goes inside and says he has a message for Sydney's dad. Yeah, he says that he has a message for Sydney's dad. And so she goes back in and tells mom and dad that the guy's out there, and then they kind of freak out, and they make Jonathan Taylor Thomas go home, and and he goes, for some reason he quotes Shakespeare and says, "Parting is such sweet sorrow," and leaves. Mom tells the girls to get dressed, that they're going out. Dad comes up and says they're going for ice cream. It starts to rain. The girls start. Oh yeah. So Dad takes. I'm left out a scene where. Sorry, the girls are up in their room. The suited man is discussing with mom and dad about some stuff. Yeah, that they're overhearing. It's very vague. Then dad comes up and says they're going for ice cream.
Right.
For whatever.
And the dad had told that suited man, like, I told you never to come here when he first showed up. So,
right.
You know, there's something up. Then they finally go to get ice cream. And I was very confused as to why his car crashed, like, other than the road being wet. Like, it seemed like he purposely tried to crash it or something, because it just, like, suddenly starts veering into, I don't know, a cliff.
Right. So girls start crying. There's a car accident. Sydney lives. Everyone else dies. Like,
it's not just a car accident. They like go into. Actually, Steve, this is when I realized it wasn't VR troopers. I remember now, because
with the deaths.
The car, like, you know, goes off like a ledge or something, goes into like a body of water, and the car is being submerged, and, you know, you can see like the kids are inside the car, and I'm kind of surprised they filmed this with the actual kids, like, they're fully submerged, like, in this car.
Yeah.
You know, surrounded by water, so they're all drowning, and only one of the kids gets out, and I was like, wow, this is really dark for VR Troopers. And then I was like, this can't be VR Troopers. Can you imagine they were killing kids like on Fox Kids Afternoon?
VR.5 and VR Troopers is the crossover we never knew we wanted.
I would argue VR Troopers is, I don't know. I was going to say it uses VR more than this, but not really.
Well, we're going to find out again next week. So yeah. I mean, I actually thought the cold open was pretty decent. It made me sort of intrigued to see what else was going to go on, and just to make sure it's obvious, Sydney lives. Everyone else in the car dies, and so the cold open kind of did it for you as well.
Yeah. I thought it was a pretty solid cold open. Really caught me off guard, because again, I thought this was a Fox Kids show, so it was extra impactful for me.
That's awesome. All right, so 17 years later, and we're now in Los Angeles. Sydney is doing phone repair on top of a skyscraper, and
as you do.
Yeah, sure. And like, I thought some of the cinematography at the beginning was actually pretty cool. You mentioned some, you know, helicopter shots and whatnot. Like, I'd say in that regard, that's actually like a plus, at least for this show. But as we're going to see, there's a lot of minuses coming our way.
Sure are.
Yeah, so Sydney works with Adam Baldwin. Do you remember his name? I didn't write it down for some reason.
Scott.
There it is.
Cooper.
And and they have like a sort of weird coworker flirty relationship. And he's like, oh, we just started working together and I already like you more. Like, I hope you sure like working with me. Otherwise, I'm going to have to work with Butt Crack Watkins. Like, yeah. And I'm just like, oh, God. And then this is definitely, the dialogue in this is pretty bad. It's like after the cold open, we plunged to some pretty bad depths going on. And anyway, he leaves, I guess, to go... Or no, he's done, actually. He's like clocking out, but Sydney wants to hang around and just listen to random phone conversations. And then we get the opening credits. And now Sydney is at home playing the most basic-looking VR game since before Virtua Fighter 1.
Yeah, the computer graphics looked awful. I mean, even for 1995, like
right. But this is like, I mean, like this is why we watch this because it's hilariously bad. And I loved slash I guess love hate. Ironically loved when shows would do this, or shows slash and movies would do this back in the 90s, and your internet at home wouldn't look anything like theirs on TV or in the movies. And yeah, like I remember
like the UI for like their computer is completely super unrealistic.
Right.
Always like it would always somehow be both more simplistic than what you would use in real life, but also way more advanced.
Right. It was either too good or too bad. Like I remember the UI in Mission Impossible, the first Mission Impossible, like looked awesome. I'm just like, man, why doesn't mine look like that? I'm stuck here with AOL. Oh God, help me out. But yeah, so I was definitely on board for this. Like I thought it was hilarious, and at this point, at least. And I wrote down like what year is this supposed to take place, because that's the weird thing is like. Nobody just had random VR like laying around in the 90s. You had to go to like one of those arcades where you paid like $30 for 1 hour to like stand there and move your hands around with the big.
And even then, like it was hard to find arcades that had that stuff because like at the time, Virtuality was a company that made like basically the company that made VR arcade stuff. And those Virtuality machines, I'm trying to remember the price. I used to know because I did a video that covered some of their stuff. But I want to say that some of those arcade machines were like $75,000 to $100,000 or something like that. So, you weren't really gonna buy that. Your average arcade wasn't gonna just buy that. So
right. Well, she explains later how she has like a VR setup, which we'll get to. I'm just curious. Do you remember the first time you ever played a VR game / machine?
Yeah, it was a Virtuality machine. Like in I want to say like 99 or something like that, where I don't even think that Virtuality was around anymore, but I was at an arcade that happened to have them, and it was cool.
Like in Tampa or?
I want to say it was Orlando.
Okay.
I think maybe it was back when I'm starting to think I'm mixing up my years, but there used to be like an arcade at Disney.
Oh, Disney Quest.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my first place too. Yeah, where I played.
Oh my God, Steve, we have so much in common.
Oh my God, we should totally do.
Should we kiss?
I was gonna say we should totally do a podcast, but you made it weird. Good for you. No, I remember I had a couple of chances, but they were just so expensive. I remember, you ever go to Qzar in Tampa?
Oh, yeah.
I remember they had a couple of one or two VR machines, but again, it was like $30 for maybe not even an hour, maybe like 30 minutes. And I was like, screw that.
Yeah, I don't think it was an hour.
Yeah. So yeah, it wasn't until much later. I would say I didn't even get to Disney Quest till late 90s, early 2000s, and got to play there. And when it first opened, it was cool, but then later they never bothered to upgrade. But anyway, going on with VR.5 here. So yeah, cut to Sydney is at another repair job. Her coworker Scott says she's got no one to go home to. Then she's back at home again. Like basically, there's really only like 2-3 sets in the entire pilot that we see. She tries to call her coworker for a date, but she's too scared. While on the computer, her roommate, let's call him not Adrian Paul, shows up talking about Australia. Like,
wait, is he her roommate though? Because it doesn't he like live on a roof?
Yeah, well,
I was so confused.
At this point, yeah, I didn't realize that. I just assumed since he was there, I didn't realize he was basically like her Kramer. Like,
right, like
he lives near her. Yeah,
right. We see like them hang out at his area or whatever, and it seems like it was so dark, and the quality of the video wasn't good, but it looked like it was like a roof, and there was a tent back there. So the implication is he's living up there, and he's got like lights and shit up there. It was very confusing.
And the thing that made it even more confusing, because it is definitely the roof, I'm fairly certain, but there's also a phone booth up there for some reason.
Yeah.
But that's like
Why
the
would there be
most.
a phone booth on the roof of a building?
It's like that's the typical like. When we talked about that, that's the first episode when we talked about that Sega thing.
Absolutely, Rose Street.
Yeah, the whole like, ooh, we got to have a weird warehousey hangout place.
Right, that's a very 90s trope. Like either the apartment has to look warehousey, or somebody has to have like some kind of setting, a studio where they do their art.
Right. I mean, even like I remember even Nash Bridges, his like apartment. Half a wall had been knocked down because of an earthquake, and then they just built around it. It like made no sense. But yeah, you're right. A 90s trope completely. But yeah, so I guess he's his neighbor, technically. We'll just call him Kramer. But anyway, so when she starts playing this flying game, and again, watching her play it was freaking hilarious.
Yeah, she's got like the VR headset on, and which is like, which looks like just like big sunglasses.
Yeah, I remember even watching it back then, because like I'm pretty sure the first movie I ever watched about VR was was The Lawnmower Man. They have the huge like full helmet, and here she just has the sunglasses. I remember even back then being a little disappointed, but yeah, here she puts on her sunglasses, she has the gloves, and she's holding out her arms like this. It looks so ridiculous.
Now, I want to say though, the gloves are not that far off from reality, because there was this thing called the Data Glove, and this guy that was a pioneer in virtual reality, seems like John or Lons something, it doesn't matter, but anyways, it was something that he had like helped create, and you would use that to manipulate objects like in the first virtual reality systems, and it was not too they were pretty thin. But they were connected to like another system that had wires. But anyways, the Data Glove is actually the technology that the Power Glove for Nintendo was based off of, coincidentally. But
nice.
But yeah, the headset itself is ridiculous. And then later on, like we have a scene where they are wearing the real VR headsets,
right?
The giant freaking headsets that wrap all around your head that weigh 20 pounds. So just weird.
Yeah. And so just to be clear, because things are gonna mix up here in a bit, like in the first two instances where she uses VR, it's like actual like really basic computer graphics, which is why we watched this thing, because that's what we came to see. But then so all right, let's see, where was I? And then so she's playing the game, then her boss Pendulette calls about a car or something, and then he gets.
Well, no, it's not her boss. It's just her neighbor. Earlier,
right?
When she had tried to go to work, he was blocking her. Her car was blocking him, or his car was blocking her, and she yells to Pendulette's character, "Hey, get it down!" And he's like on the phone. He's like, "Can't you see I'm running a business here? I don't have time to whatever." He makes some misogynistic comment, because he's a bad guy.
Right.
By the way, did you find that there was like a lot of like weird comments about women in the script? Like earlier you kind of mentioned one, which is when Adam Baldwin's character tells her, "Oh, you got no boyfriend or man or husband to come home to." And there's lots of stuff like that, like about women, and this was written by a woman, so it's really weird.
Yeah, I think maybe she thought she was just giving the men what they wanted.
I don't know,
but I mean, I think that first remark was just to tell us that she was available, that Sydney's on the market and available or whatever.
Well, I will say, anybody who makes like the comment is like a bad guy. No, that's not even true, because later when she meets up with the university professor that's all about VR, that knows all about VR, he tells her something like, "Go back to the sorority,"
Oh,
toots.
right. Yeah.
So
I mean,
I
maybe
don't know,
that's how
like,
she views the world, or the creator. I don't know.
yeah. So just kind of interesting, both because that guy ends up not being a bad guy.
Right.
So it's just most of the men here like throw out at least one,
Yeah.
except for Duncan, throw out one weird comment about her being a woman.
See, Duncan is the modern man. These other guys are just old, douchebags. Yeah, they're just not as evolved as him. So yeah, Pendulette gets sucked into the flying game, and this is when.
But how does it work? You have to explain.
Okay.
How this works.
All right. So these VR games, they take place. All right, is she on the phone when she's playing the flying game before?
So this is what happened, because I didn't really like. I had to go back and watch it twice. Not the whole fucking thing.
Right.
Just a couple scenes. But so she gets on the phone with him, and she's like, oh, "Okay, whatever, yada yada." And she's distracted by the game, and instead of putting the phone back down in its usual receiver.
Oh, that's what happens.
She puts it on another one that's like connected to the computer. Why was there? I mean, I don't know what modem has a phone receiver slot in it, but this one does. So she puts it down on there, and that's how like he ends up getting sucked into the VR world. And then, like you said, instead of it being like this like really crappy, like worse than an N64 like graphics, like just really bad like polygon graphics.
Yeah.
Like, man, I would say less polygons than Star Fox on Super Nintendo.
Right. Yeah. It looks like the Super effects chip minus the Super.
Right. It was a little smoother frame rate, but other than that, like.
Right.
Anyways, that's when like instead of it being a VR polygonal world, it's like this like weirdly colored regular real full motion video. And did you read about how they shot those scenes?
Yes, I'm glad you brought that up. This is what people assume might have been the show's downfall. They said they shot them in black and white and then went in and manually colored them later. And
Very weird.
Yeah, and I'm just trying to imagine how they would do that back in 1995. And it said, let's see, I haven't written down here, that it would make the episodes take like 4 weeks longer to come out. Let's see.
I think they mean that like for each of those scenes, it could take like up to 4 weeks to complete.
Okay.
Yeah, this effect took 4 weeks to create for each episode. So yeah.
And it also,
so basically, like however many of those scenes like each episode had, it would take them 4 weeks to get them done.
Right, and it added significantly to their budget. But I mean, after watching this show, I mean, I think that's just one of their many problems.
but you know what's crazy? So I also read that the show had a budget of $1.5 million per episode.
Okay.
The budget for Star Trek TNG was about $1 million per episode, and it looked way better. Like all the effects, like everything looked way better. Like it's crazy. But you know, it's a network show, so I'm sure there's like more bureaucratic expenses, right, than a syndicated show. Probably.
Sure. So now they're inside the weird, like as Yahel said, non-polygonal VR world. It looks like a college art film, basically, like something you would see at like a film festival.
Yeah, it looks like they basically like turned the saturation up on some of the colors.
Sure.
And then the other stuff is just like white or something. It's very weird.
Yeah.
But like Pendulette is like flying through the air. He's like falling, and she catches him because she was flying in the game. And she like brings him down to earth, and he's like yelling about what's he doing there and blah blah. She's like, I don't know, yada yada. Eventually brings him down, and this whole like scene is like so weird. Then like he goes to finally move his car because I guess to him this is real, everything that's happening. He goes to move his car. He like backs up into like another car or hits something. And then like a steamroller starts coming down,
right?
And he can't open his door, so he like goes out the window of his car, barely gets out. The car they legitimately steamrolled a fucking like Corvette. Yeah. There goes like 100K of your budget.
Right.
And then he's like jumps, he sees like a bus and he's like, I'm going in this bus. And she's like, no, I don't know like what's going to happen if you do that. And like in the bus, like a bunch of weird stuff happens, but most importantly, he catches on fire. Her outfit, she looks at herself in the mirror and she's wearing like some, I guess it's supposed to be like a cool leathery outfit, and she's supposed to be looking hot, and she looks at herself like, oh, look at me.
Like
she looked like a fucking mess.
Yeah, like I don't know, some steampunk cosplayer or something.
Like a very Matrix like black outfit.
Pre-Matrix on Kmart Matrix. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. You know, the RC Cola of Matrix.
You outfit. Son of a bitch. Yeah.
And eventually she like pulls down on the lever to like stop the bus, and that lever actually gets her out of the virtual reality.
Right, and even though she doesn't explain it right then and there, that's when she realizes that in order to get out of these weird experiences, she has to find this like object or something that she has to touch, and that's what gets her out of this VR world.
I think she calls it like an escape key or something.
Yes, that's it.
On.
And then she also realizes, because she tries to do it again, she ends up back at home after all this craziness, and then she realizes she has to make a connection with someone in order to get into their mind. So not Keanu Reeves goes to his payphone up on the roof and calls her up, and then they have sort of like a Cinemax style VR makeout session. But he turns into her coworker, to Adam Baldwin.
Yeah, before they even make out. Yeah,
right, before they get a chance to make out.
But Steve, like it's like they're in a jungle, right? Except there's like a shower head, and the guy's just like Duncan's just like showering. You know, he's covered up by the leaves and shrubbery or whatever. And she's like, I always wondered what was on the other side of the shower. And then he goes, because he goes to her place to shower, which we saw earlier when he was visiting. So she goes, I always wondered what was on the other side of the shower. And he goes, I always wanted you to find out.
See, that's like softcore porn level of dialogue that you can expect from VR.5.
And then once she goes over to him and like starts taking her clothes off, like he turns into Adam Baldwin. But the weird thing to me about this is like, so she is into him also then.
Yeah.
And he's into her. And like she knows this now because like later on, she may not realize right now she's like tapping to people's subconscious, but later she does. And this is never brought up again.
Right. Yeah. Like it's
like it might be brought up later in other episodes, but you would think you'd come back to this because you made, you know, a whole fucking scene about it.
Yeah. I mean, basically the writing is not good for VR.5.
Oh, is it not?
It is not good. Also, we'll get to that at the end. Let's just, there's not too much left here of the episode. Let's just power through.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. That's why we're here. So she's back at work. The coworker, Scott, is flirting with her again. He asks her if she's ready to connect. And she says no and leaves. That's kind of a funny line. Stupid, but funny. Right. So she decides to go talk to someone and get more answers about VR, and it's the guy from Voyager. And this time they do the even bigger VR helmets and suits, and then he sends her to an even bigger VR guy, the godfather of VR, or grandfather, whichever word and he's known as Dr. Morgan. And this was kind of a weird scene as she's walking into the this university. She goes to this university because he's a professor. You're hearing his voice.
Professor of VR, I guess.
Right, of course. Yeah, I mean, you can. Yeah, I mean, that's, you know, in any community college, there's a professor of VR, I'm sure.
Sure, especially in 95.
And there's a weird misdirect because she's walking in and I guess she starts calling out. He's like, Dr. Morgan, and he's like, I'm over here. And they start talking about VR and kind of like the definition of virtual reality. And he's like, you're hearing my voice, and now your mind has to like fill in the rest. And through a door, you see like the back of like an elderly man standing. And I guess we as the audience are supposed to assume that that's him. I mean, which I did. I'll admit that I did. And then when she gets there, boom, surprise, it's actually a younger guy. And I guess they were trying to like prove a point or something about virtual reality. But really it just ended up being weird and kind of clunky. Like, what did you think of that scene?
Yeah, I don't really get it either what the point of that was. I guess it was just to kind of be like, hey, you know, not everything is as it seems.
Right.
But it ended up just being kind of confusing and just odd.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it ended up being more of a distraction than anything.
Sure. And then basically she tries to have a conversation with him about VR. And again, there's some more misogynistic talk where he's like, VR, what, you and your boyfriend go play a VR game at the mall and he fill you up and you not like it?
Yeah, like what?
I'm like,
it's her boyfriend. Like, I don't
I'm like, why wouldn't she like it? Like, it's her boyfriend. Yeah. I mean, I wish Bruce Campbell would have played that role. It would have been so much better. But anyway,
it's really, really weird. Like, I wonder what this Thania St. John person. I mean, they've worked on a lot of shows I liked. You know, I liked Lois and Clark.
Right.
The Adventures of Superman, and excuse me. You know, she's. I don't know. She's got like a bunch of like decent stuff, like well-received stuff at least on her resume. But Jesus fuck, like what?
Yeah, maybe they were just like trying to make a statement, but just failing while doing it. I don't know.
I agree because later, like Duncan tries to make some philosophical statement.
Oh about, God, all that like. Yeah, go ahead.
He's like, oh, did you know that like if a 6-acre wide meteor like hit the Earth? It would like plunge us into a nuclear winter and all life would cease to exist. And I thought like that was going to be the end of it, right? Like, okay. And then there's like a long measured pause and he goes, kind of makes you think paying taxes is pointless.
Oh, God. Yeah. That,
like, what?
He was basically like, he's like that character who he showed up in some of those 90s cartoons that we watched. Like from G.I. Joe Extreme, I remember there was a guy. Yeah.
He's just like the
90s guy.
The 90s surfer
exactly.
guy.
Yeah. Okay, I'm glad you're on board with that. I was kind of one thing I did find kind of interesting is Dr. Morgan asks like Sydney about her setup, asks if she's a home brewer, and like I didn't even know that the term homebrew like existed back in the 90s. I mean, I never even heard that term until I don't know, I guess I started getting into like Newgrounds in the early 2000s and people started
I think like homebrew was around as a term for other stuff like beer making and like those kind of things.
That makes sense.
So yeah, the term was around, but it wasn't really used for, you know, like necessarily like at least not used that often for like stuff related to computers or like programming. But it makes sense, right? Because like it's something the audience would understand. Right.
And this is where we find out where Sydney got her awesome VR system, and basically it's just from like picking up pieces from around her like various phone repair jobs.
Makes no sense.
No. Why would a phone company have VR equipment lying around? Like maybe that would make sense to like an ignorant crowd in the 90s, but
now I will say I'm not convinced that they were doing telephone work, to be honest, because I thought it was more like electrical. Because why would they be like on the roof doing like all this like telephone work with all these like wires and stuff, and it seemed like they were checking. But then they are talking about like making connections. So
I mean, I just thought they had him up there because it looked cinematically interesting. That's all. Like,
yeah, you're probably right. And I know that the company she works for is called like Telcom or something like that, or Telco, or something really generic. But I don't know.
Yeah, nobody wants to see like Sydney in just a regular suburban neighborhood, just up on the the old posts and cutting a few wires. They're gonna be up on a skyscraper. Right. It's bigger and huge. Anyway, so let's see. Sydney starts asking Dr. Morgan about like how far he's gotten as far as I guess how deep into the VR world, and he says he's only gotten to like 2 or 3 senses, and she's
she's like, have you gotten all 5 senses? And
yeah,
and he says like when he says such a dumb line about how when he like tried to get sense of smell working, like his computer system caught on fire or something.
It's so
What?
stupid. It's
First of all, how would you get the sense of smell?
Yeah, I mean, it's, it's clear that the creators of the show / writer, I mean, they did the bare minimum of research for VR, or if any at all.
I think because people knew so little about VR back then, like, one, either the writers thought they could get away with, like, saying, making up whatever about it because no one's really going to know any better, or two, from doing research when I was doing my Sega VR video, back then, like, people thought, like, oh, who knows what the potential of VR seemed unlimited. So this might have just been something that they thought, well, maybe one day this will be a part of that kind of thing. So
right. So yeah, basically, Dr. Morgan tells Sydney to stop going so deep into the VR world because it's going to be dangerous. She's going to fly too close to the sun and she might get burned. I mean, the dialogue wasn't that good, but you can use your imagination.
Yeah, there was no Icarus
metaphor. Yeah. She calls her mom and brings her mom into the VR world. I don't think there was really any too much. That this is where we basically discover about the escape key, and then she goes visits her mom for real, and that's where we discover that the mom has become, for lack of a better term, a vegetable. Sydney asks what happened in the cold open. Oh yeah, I guess it's important that when she's in the VR world, she's talking to her mom and asking her what happened, back in the day, what we saw in the cold open, and mom says she doesn't remember. Mom takes, and really she's just suppressing it. She takes a bunch of pills, and then Sydney zaps out, and then she goes and visits her in real life. She's a vegetable. Now, did I miss anything important there? I think I got it all.
No, I think you got it all there.
Okay. Now she's back at work, and the coworker asks her out to Lookout Point, which that's like Archie level of like typical. Like, you ever go to Lookout Point, kid? Nope.
Yeah.
They might as well call it
like
Makeout.
80s/90s trope.
Exactly. So the workday ends. Sydney bumps into the suited man from the cold open, very briefly, and then Sydney is, I guess, hanging out with a roommate on top of the building, and that's when I realized that that's where he lived, and I was like, oh, he's so quirky, hilarious. He tells Sydney to set up a fake VR date with the coworker dude to, I guess, find out his intentions, and he basically ends up being a rapist murderer. Then Sydney goes back to Dr. Morgan. Dr. Morgan says that a dude crashed a VR plane and ended up in a hospital.
Yeah, he said that. She's like, has anybody ever died? And he says that like there was a pilot. I guess he was like a drill junkie. He wanted to know what it was like to crash like at 40,000 feet. From 40,000 feet, he wanted to feel it. And for whatever reason, this guy lets him do it. And then she's like, "Did he die?" And he goes, "No, but he ended up in a coma." That's why.
Well,
and then he tells her like, you better stop now. So maybe if you stop now, maybe you'll be able to sleep at night. Because I sure as hell can't.
That was a great performance there. I mean, we could actually infer, what we find out later is that, maybe he made up that story because, of course, it's bullshit. But, maybe in the world of VR.5, something like that actually happened. I don't know. What do you think? Do you think it actually happened, or do you think he made it up to scare Sydney away?
I think it happened.
That makes it hilarious then.
I think it happened.
All right. But the important thing here is that he says that, just because somebody's thinking horrible things doesn't mean they're actually going to do it in real life. So she goes back on yet another VR date, and she turns the tables on the VR coworker. Can you describe what happens there? How she turns the tables?
I'm sorry?
All right, so she goes back to the date. And,
yeah. So the virtual date, she goes back, and rather than like, because in the first time he like just starts choking her, you know, and trying to kill her. Now she knows that's what's going to happen. She ends up just like running and like calling him out on like accusing him basically of like murder or whatever. She's like, says, I know what you did, even though she doesn't.
Right.
And then because of that, I guess the idea is because she's tapped into her subconscious, like she starts to like see images of the people that he's killed. So like, you know, like his ex-wife that he killed pops up. Some girl that went to like the university he was working at pops up. And like she sees where he's buried them. Yeah, she ends up just basically then exiting.
Right. She runs and hits that like there's like a I don't know, a call box, whatever you want to call it, emergency call box, and hits that and
something. I don't remember what it was.
Yeah, and escapes, and Sydney and Duncan MacLeod go to back to Lookout Point to look for evidence. And then Sydney goes on the date anyway. And did you notice the music playing in the background on this date?
Yeah, I didn't understand that.
So bad. It's like not even really like the sort of what you would think it would be, which would, you know, you would assume it would be like sort of cheesy, I don't know, adult contemporary or whatever, but I can't even describe it, but it's bad. Whatever it is, it's bad.
Yeah.
Sydney tries to very cleverly start asking the guy about his past, so he just goes ahead and pulls out a knife. Sydney runs for the phone, you know, the phone that she used to escape before, and I don't know what she was going to do in between the period of time that she got to the phone and him chasing her, but he just ends up hitting her with the butt of the knife and just leaves her lying there. She sees the remains of one of his dates, and then a chase ensues. I mean, I guess you could assume that he was looking for a shovel to bury her.
I guess. Maybe he's like a big fan of buried alive matches.
Oh, man. He was looking for his Undertaker underoos.
Yes.
And sees another poorly hidden body. Like those, I mean, he did a terrible job burying the other bodies. I guess he wanted to do her right. Let's see, he ends up tripping and falling on the knife, and then Dr. Morgan shows up out of nowhere, and Sydney's like, "Oh, why are you here, Dr. Morgan?" And he's like, "Well, I hacked your VR." And then this is when Dr. Morgan explains that, you know, he was trying to tell her to stop, not to get too close, and but that he works for this committee. In fact, you should call it the committee. And then now they're going to make her work for them. And then we see that the suited man is driving Dr. Morgan's van at the end. And then that's the end of the episode.
Yeah. So, Steve, before you we get into like our thoughts on it and furthermore render a verdict, I want to give you a little bit of additional information that I don't think you have about VR.5.
Do tell.
Because I'm guessing you didn't visit the VR.5 fandom Wikipedia.
I went to the regular Wikipedia. I didn't realize there was a fandom Wikipedia.
Steve, there is an FAQ that is literally, if I had to guess how many pages it would be to print, I am not, you know what, I'll find out right now. 5 prints?
This is crazy. Wow, this is why I hired you. You're really earning your money today.
I'm going to guess it's loading the preview still, and I have a very powerful computer. I do high quality CG on this computer. It's still waiting. I'm going to guess it's at least 150 pages.
Would you say your computer is a VR6 or maybe even a VR7 at this point?
It's funny you mentioned VR6 and 7, Steve, because I was about to bring them up, because did you know that they come up?
I swear I don't know, if I try to regress back into my memories for 1995, I think I remember them mentioning something within the show.
So basically, eventually in the show, and obviously I'm going to be missing a lot of stuff because I didn't personally watch it. I'm going off like some synopsises from like the last few episodes, but a few things get revealed. Number one, by the way, in this FAQ, people had written into Fox apparently complaining about the implausibility of her using an acoustic modem in older, because acoustic modems are like from like the 70s and 80s.
Right.
And that's what she's using, like how the implausibility of that being used to like get people into whatever. And Fox put out like, I don't know if it was a press release or just like an email that they were sending back to people, but it's in this FAQ. And basically they were like saying like that it's going to be explained.
Mm-hmm.
And they do explain eventually how VR.5 works. And it turns out that Dr. Joseph Bloom, Sydney's father, and her sister, they never died in the car crash. In fact, the car crash never even happened.
Whoa.
Because VR6 was used by fucking Sydney's mom to reprogram her memories of that.
Whoa.
And Nora Bloom, Sydney's mom, she's not in a coma because she tried to take a bunch of pills and commit suicide like we saw in this episode. That's not what happened at all, Steve. She got lost in VR while reprogramming Duncan and Sydney's memories. So for some reason, she was reprogramming Duncan's memory. I'm assuming she did something to make Duncan be like somebody that like looked out for her or something like that would be my guess. But which would be kind of weird because she must have done that when he was like a kid.
Right.
I don't know. Maybe he was the kid.
Yeah,
in the
JTT.
Yeah. So I guess that was him, right? So, anyways, so some other stuff that ends up happening is people in VR6 can work in teams to erase conditioning and memories because they have access to each other's subconscious minds, which overlap to form the truth. The car accident never happened. It was a combination of VR programming and the actual abduction of Sydney's father and sister.
Whoa.
So...
Whoa.
Basically, and there was some woman that I guess like helped the woman that was looking after Nora Bloom, who we saw in this episode, the mom. She's part of the committee. It turns out.
I see.
But then there's also a VR7 that gets introduced. But the way VR5 works is that apparently her dad, Dr. Joseph Bloom, had some kind of VR computer set up running this whole time. And it was connected to like the telephone lines and the key to accessing its power the way Sydney does has to do with like retinal patterns that have to be recognized. So obviously he had, I guess, set it up to like recognize her. But later on, it turns out, I guess, that her dad might be insane because his personality was fractured with VR8.
Awesome.
So, like, it sounds like they actually do some kind of, like, interesting stuff. And I did read that VR7, when it was mentioned and I guess shown, it used more like Wolfenstein 3D style graphics is how it was described. So, yeah. And time and space apparently don't work the same way in VR7 as, like, in the other VRs, whatever. But... So yeah, and like apparently the committee at some point splinters. Like there's like some like infighting, and there's like a faction called the Splinter faction, and like
wow.
So I mean, honestly, like it sounds like some interesting stuff happens. However, I question the dialogue explaining these things.
Yeah,
and the quality of it.
Right, the execution. You mean? Isn't there a like a the committee Wolfpack and Latino committee?
Yeah, basically there's a Wolfpack committee white and red, right? Like they did in WCW.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, all that stuff sounds interesting. It sounds like somebody plotted out an interesting season or maybe even series, but unfortunately they didn't have the ability to execute it well, at least according to this pilot.
Right.
So yeah, let's. Are we ready to render our verdicts?
I think we are.
All right. Here's this one.
Remember before rated. That's the question.
All right, Yahel Velazquez. You can use that anytime you want. Do you think VR5 should be remembered for all of eternity, or tossed into the virtual black hole of obscurity, never to be heard from again?
Well, Steve, before I render my verdict, there was one thing I forgot to mention.
Sure.
That in the final episode, where we find out a lot of stuff about like VR6 and how like, Sydney's mom was like really in the comic, she was like stuck in VR, blah 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 blah. Sydney saves her mom from VR6 or whatever, whichever VR she's in. She saves her, but Sydney herself gets stuck in VR, and because there's no more episodes after that, like I guess it's like a cliffhanger that never gets resolved. But anyways,
wait. Do you think her and Dr. Sam Beckett are like teaming up somewhere?
maybe Jerry O'Connell from Sliders shows up later. And,
did he get lost too at the end of Sliders?
I don't want to give it away in case you ever watch.
All right, we'll have to cover Sliders another time. Okay.
Yeah, dude, I love Sliders. Anyway.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, my opinion is unknown.
Okay. Yeah, mine too.
Do I think the show? No, fuck it.
Oh yeah.
The pilot is terrible. It can go sit on a pine cone.
Oh wow. Yeah, no, I agree 100%. The characters were completely unlikable. Like I didn't care if anyone lived or died, whether it be in the real world or the virtual one. Like the only reason to watch this would just be to see like the datedness of it all. Like we said before, the hilariously bad CGI and the art house style virtual reality like colors and stuff.
Right.
Unfortunately, it's just not a good pilot and wouldn't make anyone want to watch any more episodes of what sounds like could have been like a really cool series. And I saw online where I guess people wrote in for a revival of VR.5. And like they couldn't even get past like the script writing stage or something like that. I don't think they could pull it off now because like virtual reality isn't like hip and cool anymore. I don't know. But yeah, so we are going to toss it in the black hole of obscurity. Here it comes.
Yes, please do.
Oh, whoops, that's the wrong one. Shoot. God, there it is.
The heathens have spoken. You are obliterated.
Wow, canceled, just like Disney Quest was, sadly. I really loved that place. That was the best thing Disney ever did.
Yeah, that was a cool place.
Well, we can close the book on VR5, ladies and gentlemen. But if you want to watch, I guess, the entire series, it's up on archive.org. That's where I watched the pilot.
Yeah, it's on YouTube as well. I don't know what the whole series is, but the pilot's on YouTube. The quality is subpar. Quality is subpar on archive.org as well, but I think the archive one is a little better quality.
Yeah, I wish I could have found one with like old commercials in it. That would have been hilarious. Yeah. So how's everything going at Wrestling with Gaming?
Good. But by the way, there is a VR.5 drinking game apparently.
Oh.
Where basically, and it's like it has a lot of rules. It's just stuff about like you take like a sip every time you see Sydney wearing an unnecessarily skimpy outfit. You take a drink if for each techno geek who complains about Sydney's use of an acoustic modem. Every time Duncan says "Hey," you take a drink.
Hey.
So yeah, and there's like a bunch of them. I guess there's some guy named Alex that becomes like a big thing later on. That they're like take a drink every time like he changes his her hairstyle. I guess it's a woman. But my favorite was take one drink every time the dad drowns.
Oh.
So
wow.
Like it must get showed.
Yeah, he must be drowning a lot.
Yeah.
Speaking of, I guess, VR movies, and I guess this sort of fits in. Just really quick, I'll mention that I ironically watched The Matrix Resurrections, and man, is it? I'll just say that it is the Matrix movie that 2021 deserved.
Yeah, I haven't watched it, but I've heard it's not great. I was never a huge fan of Matrix. I mean, like everybody, like when the first one came out, I thought the effects were great for the time. You go back and watch them now, you're like, why does Keanu's coat look like it's CG coat look like it's made out of plastic? You know, like there's a lot of like really crappy CG in that movie.
If you want to see some hilariously bad acting from Keanu, you can check out Matrix Resurrection. I mean, it is hilariously bad. Bad. Yeah, anyway, other than that, you got a video coming out soon, or what's going on over there?
Working on trying something different, working on 2 scripts at the same time. One of them is going to be, I'm basically going to George Lucas one of my videos on the Game Boy camera, redo it with some fancy CG. It was like my second or third video I ever made. And it doesn't have a ton of views, so I figured I'll remake it, make it fancy. There's some more information that's come out since then, so I'll revamping the script a little bit.
Yeah,
and for the others,
throw Jar Jar Binks in there for no reason.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yep. And then for the other script that I'm working on, I'm going to keep that one under wraps because I don't want somebody to take it.
Top secret, just like VR's 7 through 20.
Yes.
I like it.
It's about VR.5, the video.
Man, the Sega CD really missed out on making a VR.5 CD-ROM that no one would play. Yeah, well, over here, just still getting more pages for issue 1 of Escaped Earth. They're looking pretty sweet. Colorist.
Your artist is back from vacation?
Yeah, it was weird. He didn't really take too long of a one for Christmas, but for whatever reason, the colorist was MIA, or is still MIA until January 6th. I don't know. It's a French thing, I guess. They're always...
Yeah, those Europeans get decent vacation time.
Healthcare, public healthcare.
So weird.
God, thank God I'm a God-fearing American who pays too much for healthcare.
Imagine healthcare being treated like a human right. VR5 like VR dumb.
Well, it looks like someone finally joined the chat right as we were about to wrap up.
Paisley's here. Hey, Paisley Boxers.
What up?
You missed all the VRing.
Yeah. But you can experience it in...
I tell you, by the end of this show, I felt like I was VR fucked over because this shit sucked. Like you said, this show, it was 45 minutes that lasted 4 hours.
Yeah. As I was like taking notes, I felt like I was just filling up pages. And then when I went back and read them, I was like, whoa, that's only a couple of pages. Like, God, it was just...
And well, you know, what's funny is like at some point during the show, like... when Sydney has her first experience with like pulling Pendula into virtual reality, she's asked Duncan, who's in the apartment, "Oh, how long was I out?" And he's like, "A few seconds." And to her it had been like 30 minutes or something. Right. Anyways, I felt like I was in VR5 as well.
Right. Yeah, I gotcha right there. Well, Paisley Boxers, I hate to cut it off here, but I think we are all done here on Obscurity Now. Make sure you tune in next week at the same obscure time, 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern, where we will be discussing VR Troopers. Until then,
finally.
Yeah, the whole internet's been waiting for that one, or rather, you have.
Yeah, apparently, because I thought this was VR Troopers. Yeah. There's kids dying on Fox Kids. So weird.
The gritty VR Troopers reboot we never knew we needed. All right. All right. We'll see you next time. Happy New Year, everybody.
You've been enjoying Obscurity Now, a podcast that's recorded live to tape and streamed to Twitch and YouTube. Subscribe so you never miss an episode or hilarious quip. Take us with you by following the download links provided in the show notes to wherever you get podcasts. And take notice of our various social media links. If that's what you're into, I'm not here to judge. And make sure you join us live next week at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific as we continue to discuss more obscure media only on Obscurity Now.